The desert wind carried the scent of dust and despair as I approached Cairo. The city, once a jewel of the world, now bore the scars of the Black Death, its vibrancy dulled by loss and fear. The marketplace, though bustling, felt hollow. The laughter was strained, the bartering lacked its usual fervor. Death had cast a long shadow, and even commerce could not escape its grip. The mosques stood as silent witnesses to the city's plight, their grandeur a stark contrast to the despair that lingered in the air. Even faith seemed to offer little solace in the face of such devastation. I sought refuge in Cairo, hoping to escape the plague's reach and the hollow rituals of court. But the city's wounds mirrored my own disillusionment. The pursuit of power had left me weary, the accolades meaningless. The Nile, ancient and enduring, offered a moment of tranquility. Its steady flow reminded me of the relentless march of time, and the importance of finding meaning amidst the chaos. A snatch of conversation caught my ear. Two merchants, their faces animated, spoke of a new coffee house, a place where ideas flowed as freely as the dark, bitter brew. Intrigued, I followed the whispers to a modest building. The aroma of roasted coffee beans hung heavy in the air, mingling with the excited murmur of voices. I saw a woman, Fatima al-Misriya, with sharp eyes and nimble hands. She commanded the space with an air of quiet authority, expertly preparing the coffee that fueled the conversations around her. A young server, Rabia, flitted through the room, her bright eyes absorbing the energy and ideas that swirled around her like the steam from the coffee cups. Scholars, merchants, artisans, a tapestry of Cairene society gathered within those walls. The air buzzed with debates on philosophy, theology, mathematics, and the mysteries of the cosmos. The arguments were passionate, the opinions diverse. It was a far cry from the stifled discourse of the court, a place where genuine intellectual exploration thrived. In that humble coffee house, I found a glimmer of hope, a space where ideas could take root, where minds could connect, and where even in a city ravaged by plague, the seeds of a new future might be sown. The aroma of roasted coffee beans had become my constant companion. Fatima's coffee house, a haven from the city's woes, offered more than just a stimulating brew. It was a crucible where ideas met, mingled, and sometimes clashed. Fatima, the coffeehouse's proprietress, possessed an uncanny ability to navigate the diverse personalities within her establishment. She was a quiet observer, a subtle facilitator, and a shrewd businesswoman. The topic was the decline of empires. I argued, as I often did, that societal cohesion and moral integrity were the cornerstones of enduring power, while the merchant countered with tales of economic cycles and the fickle nature of trade. Such were the debates that filled the air. Rabia, one of the servers, was a silent student. She listened to our debates with an intensity that belied her youthful appearance. I often wondered what thoughts swirled behind those dark, observant eyes. One evening, the discussion turned to philosophy. I expounded on Aristotle's concepts of governance, highlighting the importance of justice and the dangers of tyranny. The Imam, surprisingly, offered insightful counterpoints, drawing parallels from Islamic jurisprudence. Fatima, ever vigilant, seemed to absorb the intellectual currents of the coffee house, though she rarely participated directly. I suspected she possessed a wisdom that transcended formal education. Rabia lingered near our table, ostensibly to refill our cups, but her attentiveness spoke volumes. I caught her gaze once, and saw a spark of intellectual curiosity that warmed my heart. It wasn't just scholars who frequented Fatima's. Artisans, too, found solace and intellectual stimulation here. I overheard a group debating the intricacies of Ptolemaic astronomy, applying their practical knowledge to understand the cosmos. Late into the night, after the clamor had subsided, I would remain, recording my observations and reflections. The coffee house had become my laboratory, a place to dissect the complexities of Cairene society. Fatima, too, worked late, ensuring the coffee house was ready for another day. Our shared sanctuary, a testament to the power of community and the enduring thirst for knowledge. Unbeknownst to me, Rabia was also learning. I discovered one morning that she was teaching herself how to read, using my discarded notes as her primer. Her thirst for knowledge was undeniable. As I watched Rabia, I realized that Fatima's coffee house was more than just a place to drink coffee and debate ideas. It was a seedbed of potential, a place where even the humblest individual could cultivate their intellect and contribute to the tapestry of human knowledge. And that, I knew, was a force to be reckoned with. The coffee house was becoming a crucible, not just for brewing coffee, but for brewing ideas. Each day, more faces filled Fatima's establishment, drawn not just by the drink, but by the increasingly bold discourse. I watched them, these men and women, their voices rising and falling with each passionate argument. Fatima's coffee house was changing, becoming something more than just a place for refreshment. It was becoming a forum, a challenge to the silence the Mamluks preferred. The whispers grew louder, bolder. Talk of injustice, of corruption, of the Mamluks' heavy hand. I, Rabia, a mere server, found myself learning more about the world than I ever did within the four walls of my home. The discontent was palpable. Merchants grumbled about exorbitant taxes, artisans complained about unfair competition, and even some within the Mamluk ranks expressed their unease about the growing decadence and tyranny. I found myself drawn into these discussions, offering my own perspectives based on my study of history and society. The coffee house was a true agora, where ideas clashed and mingled, forging new understandings. Fatima, ever watchful, recognized the increasing danger. She understood that the bolder the discourse, the closer we danced to the edge of the sword. The whispers did not go unnoticed. The conservative imams, pillars of the establishment, began to view Fatima's coffee house with increasing suspicion. They saw it as a breeding ground for heresy and dissent, a threat to the traditional order. I overheard them. A den of iniquity, they called it, a place where sacred traditions are mocked and forgotten. They spoke of informing the authorities, of demanding its closure. I warned Fatima. The Mamluks do not tolerate dissent, I said. They will not allow this to continue unchecked. She listened, her face etched with concern, but her eyes remained resolute. She gathered us together. They may try to silence us, she said, her voice clear and strong. But we will not be silenced. We will be careful, yes, but we will continue to speak our minds, for silence is the greatest weapon of the oppressor. The storm was coming. We could feel it in the air, see it in the faces of the men who cast furtive glances in our direction. The Mamluks were on their way. We stood ready, a small band of thinkers, dreamers, and dissenters, facing the might of the Mamluk Empire. Our only weapons were our words, our courage, and the bitter brew of knowledge that flowed through our veins. The early morning light filtered through the courtyard, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I found myself at Fatima's earlier than usual, seeking a moment of quiet contemplation before the day's intellectual storm began to brew. Fatima, ever the industrious proprietor, was already at work, the rhythmic grinding of the coffee beans a soothing counterpoint to the city's waking cacophony. Her focus was absolute, each action deliberate. I observed her, a woman forging her own path in a world that often sought to confine her. My curiosity regarding her origins, her motivations, had been piqued for some time. She approached my table, placing a steaming cup before me. "The usual Ibn Khaldun," she said, her voice soft but firm. I tasted the brew, its familiar bitterness a comfort. "Fatima," I began, "your coffee house, it is more than just a place for refreshment. It is a sanctuary of sorts. What led you to create such a space?" She paused, her gaze drifting towards the courtyard. "My path was not always clear, Ibn Khaldun. I lost my family to the plague. I did this to honor their memory by creating a space for learning." She recounted her struggles, the challenges she faced as a woman daring to enter the world of commerce. The closed doors, the dismissive glances, the constant need to prove her worth. "But I persevered," she continued. "I learned from every setback, every failure. I discovered that knowledge is the most powerful weapon and the most precious commodity." Rabia, ever attentive, moved among the tables, her ears catching snippets of our conversation. I sensed in her a similar thirst for knowledge, a quiet determination to rise above her circumstances. I listened, absorbing her words, understanding the strength that lay beneath her gentle demeanor. Fatima was more than just a coffeehouse owner. She was a beacon of resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit. "And you, Ibn Khaldun," she said, her eyes twinkling, "what brings a scholar of your stature to my humble establishment?" I smiled back, a sense of mutual respect passing between us. "Perhaps," I replied, "we are both seeking the same thing, a place where ideas can flourish and the echoes of the past can inform the future." The political winds were shifting. Whispers of discontent were growing louder, reaching even the ears of the Mamluks. I felt a growing unease, a sense that our haven was being watched. Fatima, ever perceptive, noticed the new faces, men who didn't quite fit. Their eyes darted nervously, their questions too pointed. They were like vultures circling, waiting for carrion. Rabia, with her keen ears and sharp mind, picked up fragments of conversations, piecing together a worrying picture. The Mamluks were not pleased with the discourse taking place within our walls. I voiced my concerns to Fatima. "These men, they are not here for the coffee. They are here to listen, to observe, to report." Fatima, though worried, remained resolute. "We will not be silenced, Ibn Khaldun. This coffeehouse is a sanctuary and we will defend it." Rabia, ever resourceful, found ways to protect those who frequented the coffeehouse. A spilled pot here, a hushed warning there. She was our eyes and ears within the crowd. We adapted our discourse, cloaking our more controversial discussions in layers of seemingly innocuous chatter. The price of spices, the phases of the moon, the latest gossip from the marketplace, all served as a shield for our true intentions. The Mamluks' presence grew bolder. Soldiers patrolled the streets outside the coffeehouse, their presence a constant reminder of the power they wielded. One evening, a Mamluk officer attempted to enter the coffeehouse, demanding to inspect the premises. Fatima stood her ground. "This is a place of business," she declared, "not a den of criminals." I stepped forward, adding my voice to Fatima's. "By what authority do you seek to enter? This is a place of lawful commerce and peaceful assembly." Rabia, emboldened by our defiance, rallied the patrons. "Are we to be silenced? Are we to be controlled? We will not yield." The officer, faced with our collective resistance, hesitated. The power of the Mamluks was absolute, But the power of a united people, fueled by knowledge and shared purpose, was a force to be reckoned with. The battle for the soul of Cairo had begun. The whispers had become shouts. The Mamluks, uneasy with the coffeehouse's growing influence, were tightening their grip. I knew the time for neutrality was ending, but the path ahead was fraught with peril. Fatima, ever the pragmatist, was preparing for the storm. Her quiet resolve was a stark contrast to the growing fear amongst the coffeehouse regulars. I wandered through the city, trying to reconcile my past with the present. Had my years in the courts, my attempts to advise rulers, been for naught? Was I destined to repeat the mistakes of my youth? Seeking solace, I found myself in the Grand Mosque, but even the sacred space offered no easy answers. The weight of my responsibility pressed down on me. News reached me that the Mamluks had paid Fatima a visit. Her courage in the face of such power was both admirable and terrifying. Rabia's fear was a mirror to my own. The Mamluks could crush us with ease, but the cost of silence was far greater. I spent the night wrestling with my conscience. Could I stand by and watch as the light of knowledge was extinguished? My pen became my weapon. The next morning, I presented Fatima with a letter, a carefully worded appeal to reason and justice. It was a gamble, but it was all I had to offer. Her reaction was unreadable. I knew my words alone might not be enough, but perhaps they could buy us time. I decided to use what little influence I had left. I requested an audience with the Mamluk leaders, a desperate plea for understanding. I spoke of the importance of knowledge, of the dangers of suppressing free thought. My words echoed in the grand hall, but I knew they might fall on deaf ears. The scholar's dilemma was over. I had chosen my side. Whether it was enough, only time would tell. The day began like any other, filled with the aroma of coffee and the murmur of intellectual debate. But a sense of foreboding hung in the air, a shadow cast by the growing unrest in the city. The Mamluk officer, his face grim, read the order aloud. Fatima's coffeehouse was to be shut down, effective immediately. The reasons cited were vague: public order, religious piety, but the true motive was clear: to silence the voices of dissent. Rabia, her heart pounding, watched as the Mamluks began to clear the coffeehouse. Patrons protested, but their voices were drowned out by the clang of armor and the shouts of the soldiers. I stood beside Fatima, our voices raised in protest. We argued for the right to free thought, for the importance of open discourse, but our words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Fatima, her spirit unyielding, stood defiantly at the entrance, blocking the path of the Mamluks. Her courage ignited a spark of resistance in the hearts of the onlookers. Rabia, quick and nimble, darted through the city's narrow streets, carrying messages to those who frequented the coffeehouse, urging them to gather and show their support. I spoke to those who had gathered, reminding them of the importance of our shared pursuit of knowledge, of the threat posed by those who sought to suppress free thought. Fatima stood beside me, her presence a source of strength and resolve. She was not a scholar or a politician, but she understood the value of community and the importance of standing up for what was right. From the rooftops, Rabia kept watch, her eyes scanning the streets for any sign of the approaching Mamluks. She was ready to warn us of their arrival, to give us time to prepare. As the Mamluks approached, I stepped forward, my voice calm and steady. I appealed to their sense of reason, urging them to reconsider their actions, to recognize the value of our gathering. But reason was not on their side. Their orders were clear: to shut down the coffeehouse by force if necessary. The tension in the air was thick, like the grounds at the bottom of a coffee cup. Suddenly, a shower of stones rained down upon the Mamluks. Rabia, with the courage of a lioness, had created a diversion, giving us a chance to regroup and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. The siege had begun. The Mamluks' tightening grip was suffocating the very air we breathed. Fatima's coffee house, once a sanctuary, now stood in the crosshairs. I knew then that passive observation was no longer an option. The time for action had arrived. I found Fatima tending to the coffee pots, her movements precise yet burdened with concern. "They will not let us be, will they, Ibn Khaldun?" she asked, her voice laced with a weariness that belied her unwavering spirit. "They will try," I replied, "but we will not yield. We will defend this place, this haven of knowledge, with every tool at our disposal." Rabia, ever the keen observer, listened from the shadows, her youthful energy now tempered with a growing understanding of the stakes. She knew that this fight was about more than just coffee. It was about the freedom to think, to question, to learn. I gathered the patrons of the coffee house, scholars, merchants, artisans, all united by a thirst for knowledge. I laid out our plan, a public debate, a challenge to the Mamluks' authority, a defense of intellectual freedom. Fatima, with her innate organizational skills, transformed the coffee house into a makeshift debating hall. Tables were rearranged, benches were brought in, and the aroma of coffee mingled with the anticipation of the crowd. Rabia, armed with hand-written invitations, spread the word throughout the city. She was our messenger, our advocate, our symbol of youthful defiance. The day of the debate dawned bright and clear. The streets of Cairo teemed with people drawn to Fatima's coffee house, eager to witness the clash of ideas. I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. I began to speak, my words echoing through the coffee house, a defense of reason, a plea for tolerance, a declaration of intellectual independence. The Mamluks were present, their eyes narrowed, their faces grim. They were there to observe, to intimidate, to quell any hint of dissent. Fatima stood beside me, her hand resting on my arm, her presence a silent affirmation of our shared commitment. She was the heart of this place, the soul of our rebellion. Rabia, her eyes shining with newfound understanding, watched the debate unfold. I saw in her face the promise of a brighter future, a future where knowledge was not a privilege, but a right. The decree had been issued. Fatima's coffee house, a beacon of intellectual ferment, was to remain closed. The Mamluks, in their infinite wisdom, believed they could stifle the spread of ideas with ink and parchment, but they underestimated the resilience of the human spirit. Fatima, ever resilient, refused to be defeated. The closure was a setback, not an end. She knew the thirst for knowledge, once awakened, could not be easily quenched. Rabia, her mind brimming with the ideas she had absorbed, felt a responsibility to carry the torch. The coffee house may be gone, but its spirit lived on in her. I found myself drawn back to the familiar halls of the mosque, but my lectures now carried a different weight. The coffee house had broadened my perspective, allowing me to see beyond the confines of tradition. Fatima, never one to be idle, began sharing her knowledge with the community, transforming her skills into a source of empowerment for others. The coffee house may be closed, but she was still serving her community. Rabia, armed with the knowledge she had gleaned from the coffee house debates, took it upon herself to educate the younger generation. She saw the power of literacy as a tool for liberation. Inspired by the vibrant exchange of ideas at Fatima's, I poured my experiences and observations into my writing. The Muqaddimah, became a testament to the power of social connection and intellectual curiosity. Fatima invested her savings in a small bookshop, providing access to knowledge in a different form. She believed that books, like coffee, could awaken the mind and nourish the soul. Rabia, recognizing the need for safe spaces, organized clandestine reading circles for women, where they could discuss ideas freely without fear of reprisal. The spirit of the coffee house had gone underground. Cairo was changing, albeit slowly. The seeds of intellectual curiosity had been sown, and they were beginning to sprout in unexpected places. The Mamluks might have closed the coffee house, but they could not contain the spread of ideas. As I sat with Fatima, sharing a cup of coffee amidst the shelves of her bookshop, I realized that the coffee house was more than just a place. It was a symbol of the enduring power of human connection and the unwavering pursuit of knowledge. The bitter brew of knowledge, once poured in Fatima's coffee house, had left an indelible mark on Cairo. And as Rabia looked towards the horizon, she knew that the journey of intellectual ferment had only just begun.